going on, guys? Welcome back to my kitchen. I'm here tonight meal prepping some high protein chili. The first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and get my beans and tomatoes in the crock pot, which I've already got preheated right now. It's not a fancy crock pot or anything, it's just low or high. We're gonna cook on high. So I got 3 cans of tomatoes that are pre-diced for chili. Get these from H-E-B, of course, because I live in Texas and that is where I do all my grocery shopping. H-E-B is the best. Get 3 of those cans in. Tonight I'm kind of playing around with my chili recipe a little bit. I'm doing a 3-bean chili. I know it's an age-old debate as to whether chili has beans or not. I'm here to tell you that it does, or at least mine does. So, a lot of nutrition in beans, and I like the way they taste. So, I've got a black bean, a kidney bean, and a pinto bean going in. I did 1 can of each. So now that we've got all that in, I'll give that a stir here in a second. And then we'll start prepping our veggies and our meat. Like I said, I'm kind of playing around with the recipe tonight. So I've got some ground beef that's gonna go in. Probably 2/3 of it is ground sirloin, so a little bit leaner. Then I've got another pound of ground chuck. So this isn't a low fat or anything chili. This is just, it's a high protein chili, but you know, this is a bulk and seasoned chili. And then for the mystery meat, not really a mystery because I'm about to tell you what it is, but I'm gonna throw some cross-cut rib meat in there. Let that simmer with the chili for 8 hours or so. Maybe get some of that marrow from the bones in there. I think it's gonna be a nice twist, but we'll see. Alright, so giving the beans and tomatoes a stir, sitting in there real nice, they're getting warm. Got our veggies out here, some serranos, which we're gonna take the seeds out because we don't want this to be too hot to eat. Got some elephant garlic here. This stuff is awesome. It's just enormous cloves of garlic. And then I'm gonna be cutting up 2 yellow onions. Nothing crazy, just kind of a rough chop like that. And while we're cutting up our veggies, we're gonna go ahead and get our ground beef browning in the skillet. So I've got almost 2 pounds of ground sirloin. I've got 1.25 pounds of ground chuck. We're gonna get this stuff seasoned and browned in the skillet while I'm cutting up the veggies, and then we'll get it all in the pot. All right, so we've got our ground beef in here. I put the sirloin and the ground chuck in together. Now, these are 3 seasonings that I use in almost everything I cook. We got some garlic powder, some onion powder, and of course some salt. And I am very particular about the salt that I use. For most of my cooking, I use Himalayan pink salt. I like it because it's a potassium chloride, not sodium chloride. And consequently, it has a little less sharp of a salt flavor. So you can put a little bit more of it in there. It's just easier to cook with. Like, you're not gonna accidentally oversalt your food when you're using it. So that being given, I'm gonna go ahead and load it up because I love my salt. And I also think if you train pretty hard, you go pretty hard in the gym, you sweat a lot, which I definitely do because I train hard. And then I also spend a lot of time in the sauna after my workouts. If you sweat enough, salt is not something you really need to be afraid of. And I am not. I get plenty of it in my diet. I love it. I think that it's been unfairly demonized a little bit, but whatever. There's the salt. I do some garlic powder. I'm just gonna, don't forget, I've got 3.5 pounds of meat in here, or a little over 3 pounds of meat. So when you see me loading up the seasoning like this on top, remember I'm gonna stir this up and it's gonna go into over 3 pounds of meat. So, and we got some onion powder. Smell that? No, you don't. You can't because you're watching a video. But if you could, you'd go like this. Because it smells good. All right. All right, so the beef is done browning. Doesn't look completely different than it did when I left you guys off, but this is about what you want it to look like. Pretty granulated, small bits. There's no more red pieces in there. Everything's brown. We've cooked a lot of the water out of it. Cooked down a little bit, and this is really what I look for when I'm making chili. So that's it. We're gonna take this, we're gonna go ahead and put it in the pot. All right, put that in there. We're gonna give that a nice stir. Gonna be a thick chili. We're gonna loosen it up a little bit here in a bit with some beef broth, but this is gonna be a hearty chili. You know, a high protein chili, you should expect nothing less. It's a lot of meat, a lot of beans, and of course your veggies for the flavor. All right, that looks good. We'll go ahead and put the lid back on. Let it keep stewing. All right, so I saved saved one of each of my veggies so I can show you guys what I'm doing. As you can see, I've got a lot of my veggies already prepped. I've got one onion, one enormous elephant garlic clove left over. Look at that. Compared to an onion, why would you ever buy regular garlic again if you had the option of buying elephant garlic? This stuff is amazing. And then I've got one serrano left over. I already have 3 cut up in here. So for what I'm doing, I'm taking the top off, splitting it down the middle, just like that. And then I'm coming down the sides like this, both ways. Because I love the flavor, and not that I don't like spicy stuff, but I also like my food to be enjoyable. And if it's too hot, it's not enjoyable. And if it's too hot, my wife won't like it either. And then that's not a win. Got the seeds out for the most part. You know, you don't have to be perfect. If you end up with a couple seeds in there, not the end of the world. But if you put the seeds in from all 4 peppers, that very well could be the end of the world for you. So then we're just kind of cutting strips of these, and then maybe a little bit finer than that. There we go. Just something like that. Kind of a rough chop. This is chili. Everything's gonna cook together for about 8 hours, so anything you cut up big, probably still not gonna be that big at the end. Everything's gonna cook down and kind of melt together. So really just looking for something like this. Also, if you have not ever cooked with peppers before, this is just a warning. I'm using my bare hands right now, which I think is okay, but you need to remember to wash your hands very thoroughly afterwards, because the chemical in the peppers that makes things spicy, it's called capsaicin, is in the oil in the peppers, and when you cut it up, you expose yourself to that. It gets all over your hands, and if you're not aware or paying attention, you will end up touching other parts of your body with your hands and exposing those parts of your body to the oil, and it can be quite uncomfortable. I've done it many times. Even to this day, I still forget sometimes. Earlier, I wiped my forehead after I had cut some of these peppers up, and I was like, ooh, wow, that's weird. My forehead is burning. But, so, just a heads up. I'm not gonna wash my hands right now because I'm gonna keep cutting up vegetables, but I will wash them pretty good here in a minute. So this is my elephant garlic clove, and I'm just kind of taking this, cut it in half. I feel like I'm almost cutting up like an onion when I do this because it's so big. So just doing something like that. We'll get it broken down into a little bit smaller pieces like that. Then we'll do the other half. Yeah. Then we'll get that cut down a little bit smaller. And then we're just gonna kind of rough chop the whole bunch. I've already got about 3 other cloves about that size in the mix right there. So we've got a lot of garlic. I love garlic, so I go heavy on it when I'm cooking, as I think everybody should, because it tastes amazing and it's really good for you too. All right, and we've got our onion right here. I've already cut up one other, I would call this a medium sized, like a medium to a large sized yellow onion. That's what I'm doing in this recipe. So cut it in half down the middle. As you can see, I already cut the top and the bottom off. Cut it down the middle, and I'm peeling that outer layer with the skin off. Now we're just going to be just right down the sides. Giving us a long julienne style onion. Which is gonna cook down in the chili anyways. This side's a little bit taller. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut that side in half, and then we're gonna cut it up the same way. just like that. And really, whenever you're making chili, you can cut your vegetables up however you want. It really doesn't matter. It's however you like them, however you feel like cutting them up that day. If you feel like cutting them up into tiny little bits, go for it. If you don't really feel like cutting them up into tiny little bits, then don't. I feel like I'm in a mood of, I'm like right in between. I'm not cutting them into giant squares, but I'm cutting them into like smaller little julienne pieces, which eventually are gonna cook down anyways, because I'm about to put all of this in the pot for about 8 hours, where everything melts together to make a glorious and delicious chili. All right, so this is, I think, what I would consider about the last step before we're all in the pot. So right now I've got a little bit of butter melting in the same skillet that I cooked the ground beef in, that I browned the short ribs in, and I left all that fat in there. Oop, a little bit of paper from the butter, got that out. But I want all of that fat and that flavor in there because we are going to saute our vegetables. So, and I love this, the cumulative effect of cooking multiple things in the same pan without cleaning it. You don't need to clean it if you're cooking back to back like this. There you go. That's just flavor for the next thing that you're cooking. And right now we have all of our veggies, which we're gonna put in here, and we are gonna saute these. We're gonna throw a little seasoning on them. Remember what I said earlier, if you season the meat, you don't have to season it once it gets in the pot. Same thing with the veggies. If you're seasoning your ingredients as you go, then everything just comes together in the pot, and then you just have to let it cook. Just let it simmer. So, and I think the goal here is going to be to cook these down enough to where the onions start to caramelize a little bit, and that'll be when we know we're good. All right, and that's it right there. Whenever you pull the lid off, starts to smell sweet. That's what you're looking for. Onions are starting to caramelize. The veggies are good to go. All right, here we go. Our veggies are ready, and we are putting them in. Look at all that. And look, see that? We're already sizzling in here. We're just gonna kind of fold these veggies into the rest of the pot right here. Whew. Yes. Man, I can't wait. Oh, it's gonna be so good. Whew. All right, what's going on, guys? We are back with the final product. Here's our chili. I actually let this go overnight. It's a beautiful thing about the crock pot. Just get everything prepped, get it in there, and just let it go. So look at that, nice hearty chili, high protein chili. And as you can see, all the rib meat that I put in there has just fallen apart. Can't even tell, aside from the little bones that are in there. That's all that's left. have already tried it. I've had a small bowl already, and it is amazing. The only things that I didn't do on camera this morning was I added 2 more bunches of cilantro, just kind of rough chopped, threw it in there, mixed it in, and then I added 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar. But other than that, that's a wrap. There's your high protein chili.